photography contest,
I
just like
know.
everybody else. So I'm going to give you guys another, the poll has closed. I'm going to go ahead and share the results with you. So we have folks from a lot of different places, but the majority who voted are from Alameda and Contra Costa counties. And I do think this really large turnout, 237 people, by the way, that's by far the most we've ever had on this show. And it says a lot about the pride I think people have in the Richmond community that so many of you in this area have turned out. And then we asked you if you had been to some of these places. And I think the most popular place has been, or the most well-known place, is the Miller Knox Regional Shoreline. 63% of you said you'd been there, but many of you have also been to Point Pinole. But then we have some other places like Shipyard 3 that not that many people have been to, and also the Landfill Loop. Bruce, you're going to love this because Bruce Bayard, he's going to talk to us about Landfill Loop. It's one of his very favorite places, but he says it's a great place for solitude. We see, a lot of you guys are hikers and some of you are bikers, and then the other activities less well known. And most of you have not been on the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge. And I just was curious how many people were vaccinated. So about 29% of us have been vaccinated. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. Give me a second here. We're going to be showing you lots of images of Richmond and other things relating to the Bay Trail. Oh, give me a second to get that going. And then we will launch into the show. So this is Bay Trail Confidential. This is our 4th show. I want to go over a few things before we get into the program. First, I want to say we're hosted by City Guides. And I know many of you made donations when you bought tickets. In fact, I think we're at about $850, which is just a huge shot in the arm for our nonprofit, which is trying to survive the pandemic. So thank you very much. If you're in a position you want to donate and you didn't get a donation ticket, you could use those URLs. It'll also be in the email I send you tomorrow. We are keeping all of the non-guests muted until 8:30, until the end of the show. At that time, we take questions. We also love it if you guys want to comment, and we do let you unmute then. But in the meantime, we really encourage the use of chat. Feel free to ask questions in chat, to state your point of view. We just really like that interaction. And I go over the chat at the end of the program, and I'll summarize it and put it into the show notes that will be on our website. And at the very end, we'll ask you to raise your hand if you want to speak. Again, we find these programs work well when we control, we don't want more than one person speaking at a time. That's kind of the key to success here. I've shown you these controls, but I just want you to know if you're on an iPhone or an iPad, they may be a little different. And then we have our show notes. So a lot of what we'll be talking about, we're going to have maps out there. We have URLs, and that's already available. So if you would like to be reviewing stuff as we're talking, go to this URL, show4.baytrailconfidential.com, and you'll be able to see many of the slides that we have here. And we are being joined by Senator Sanders tonight, and he will be making another appearance in the presentation. Of course, he's always popping up here and there. So I want to again welcome my guests, Bruce Bayard, the chair of Trails for Richmond Action Committee, TRAC, which has done so much to expand the trail system in Richmond. Bruce, welcome again to Bay Trail Confidential.
Thank you, Rodney.
And I'm also joined by John Gioia, who is on the Bay Development and Conservation Commission. And you've been on that for quite some time, right, John?
Right. Bay Conservation Development Commission for about 22 years, and then the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority for the past 7 years.
Well, very, this, and the other thing I've learned, I've known you, John, for many years, but when we started working on the show, I realized the deep passion that you have for San Francisco Bay, and we'll be talking about that. And then Najari Smith from Rich City Rides. Welcome again, Najari.
Thank you. Yeah, Najari Smith,
executive director, co-founder of Rich City Rides, organization that brings connects families and youth to cycling and outdoor spaces for healthy social activity.
Yeah, and I've had the pleasure of riding with your group, and I just think it's great what you guys do. We'll be talking more about that. Here's a picture of Bruce with some of the these guys are all track volunteers, right, Bruce?
That's correct. All Richmond resident track volunteers working to complete the Bay Trail. We were formed in 1999 when Richmond had only 12 miles of Bay Trail. And now, thanks to working with the City of Richmond, East Bay Regional Park District, and the private sector, Richmond has over 36 miles of Bay Trail.
Wow, it's an extraordinary accomplishment. We're gonna talk about that history, and then here you are, John, in one of your favorite places, I think, right?
Meeker Slough, that's right. Great wetland restoration project. Great place for bird watching, and always very peaceful for me. And this is a day of when there were king tides, as you can tell.
Yep, and I got to go out there with you, which was really fun. And here's a good picture of you, Najari, with some of your Rich City Rides youth.
Yep, I remember that day. We actually did 32 miles. That day it was like an all-day ride. It was a part of the refinery healing walks, and we ended the ride at Keller Beach, where there was a gathering that day.
So 32 miles. I would looking at these young gentlemen. I would think that would be the longest maybe they'd ever ridden at that point.
Or am
I wrong?
They toughed it out the whole way, and we're still in touch with each one of those youth.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm sure that was inspiring for them, right?
Yeah, the whole trip. I was riding with a cargo bike with a cart full of water in it.
Wow.
I was really happy for each stop we made. And each time we drank some of that water, it made the whole load a lot lighter.
And I just want to point out there's a beautiful mural on the side of the Rich City Rides shop, which is pretty close to the Richmond BART station. And really, really cool. This is got a kid on a bike and kind of an homage to Rosie the Riveter. We'll be talking about all that on this program. Here's what we're going to be doing tonight. We're going to be talking about Richmond, past, present, and future on our first topic. Second topic will be social justice on the Bay Trail. And then we're going to do our photography contest. Again, you guys out there are going to be voting on 6 photographs that were submitted. These were 6 finalists, and we'll pick a winner who will get a set of Bay Trail map cards, which are really cool. And then we're going to do something we call classified information, where Ethel, Lee, and I tell you about some cool things we think you should know about. And then we'll wrap up. But at the end of the program, we have what we call the after party, where we're going to stay on and let you guys unmute and ask questions, or unmute and share your thoughts. And, this will go on, as long as you guys want to talk, we want to talk to you. We do something when we introduce people we call Bay Trail cred. And this is the Bay Trail map. It's a little hard to see, but certain parts of it are dotted lines. Like this is actually a dotted line, which means it's not completed. But we like to see where different people have been on the Bay Trail. So Ethel, this is your Bay Trail cred. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I need to tell everybody about this. I have the least amount of cred, but I have a very good reason, because I'm on the injured list. I'm 6 weeks into a non-weight-bearing cast, and hope to be out within 2 weeks, but maybe 6. And then my mission is every day out there getting some more cred.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, Ethel. That's going to be great, getting you off the DL. I'm a little bit of a show off here, but I'm hoping to cover the entire Bay Trail sometime. Definitely this year, I will have hit every part of it. I'm on a bicycle, so it's a little easier for me. Lee, hello, Lee. This is pretty good. Lee works for the Bay Trail Project. And what's the next place you want to go to, Lee?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, first of all, this map's unfortunately I didn't get comments to Rodney early enough to filled us out a little bit more. My cred's actually a little bit better than this. But I'd probably like to explore the North Bay a bit more. But really, Alviso in the South Bay, in the really far south, is a place I've been meaning to get to for quite a long time, and just for some reason haven't gotten to it one way or another.
Well, we may give you a good excuse, Lee, because I love Alviso, and I would like to do a show on Alviso soon. So we'll see about that. So
It's
Bruce,
place.
Bruce Barrett from Trails for Richmond Action Committee, very impressive Bay Trail cred.
Yes, my wife and I did this together, and we did it on foot, Rodney. We're hikers. We weren't riding a bicycle doing it the easy way.
I'm being told that maybe we should have different color for walking versus biking, and maybe we'll do that. John, you've done a lot in your district for sure.
I'm partial to Contra Costa, so I've done much of Contra Costa, a bit of San Francisco and Marin. I can't wait to do a bike ride over to Treasure Island, because you can get on the Bay Trail in Richmond and go straight to Treasure Island. And of course, now we can go across the Richmond San Rafael Bridge. So those are going to be my next two on the bike.
Well, and that's a good intro to Najari.
With Rich City Rides. That's got to be that way, right, Najari?
You're always welcome.
In Najari, I know you've been in a lot of places, but you've done this ride where you go across the Richmond San Rafael Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
Was that one of the highlights, you think, of your Bay Trail cred?
Yeah, I think that was one of my favorite rides. It wasn't a big group, but I mean, it was just amazing. It was my first time. It was actually my first time going over the Golden Gate Bridge. When you go over the Richmond San Rafael Bridge, from the Golden Gate Bridge, you can look across and see the Richmond San Rafael Bridge. So riding from sun up, we took lots of stops. We weren't racing through. We just really enjoying the whole ride. And as the sun went down, we got to see that from the Golden Gate Bridge. Really loved it.
All right, did you take the ferry back, or did you do it round trip on your bike?
Nah, I took the BART back that time. Some of our group did go all the way down through Santa Clara County and came back up and went over the Bay Bridge. I'm looking forward to the Bay Bridge, the western connection of that happening.
Yeah, and this program, we're going to talk about that in a second, what we're all about, but closing gaps is like a critical thing that we are wildly in favor of. This is, by the way, the guy who won last year's photo contest. And when you win the photo contest, you get your Bay Trail cred. He does a lot down in the Don Edwards National Wildlife Refuge, which is an extraordinary place. So first I want to do, since we have so many people that are new to the program tonight, I wanted to just give you a little bit of an introduction to the program, what we're about, and tell you, it all came about because when the pandemic started, I'm a tour guide, or I'm supposed to be a tour guide. And I realized as soon as that started that I probably wasn't going to be doing in-person tours for a long time. And I started riding my bike just to kind of cheer myself up and also deal with all the crazy political stuff going on last year. And I just started noticing all those Bay Trail signs that you'll see down along the bay. And I realized these are some of my favorite places to ride. And then I started thinking about how this thing had been growing. I've lived in the Bay Area since 1986. Here's, again, that map of the Bay Trail. But if you go back to 1989, this is all of the Bay Trail that was completed. So there wasn't very much. 10 years later, it had grown quite a bit. And then, 10 years ago, it was really starting to take form, but again, we're trying to close in these gaps. And here we are today. So today we've made a lot of progress, and I just decided I want to explore as many of these places as I can. And I started doing that. And then I got in touch with the people who are responsible for building this, the Bay Trail Project, and kind of pitched this idea to them that we would start a program where we would start talking about the Bay Trail. I think that was around May that we started talking about that. We launched the show in October, and this is our fourth one. And we're looking forward to this future where the Bay Trail encircles all of San Francisco and San Pablo Bays. And you'll be able to bike, walk, the whole thing, completely safe. That's the vision. And it's, to me, a really wonderful vision. it's a legacy that we will all have to the future. So the goals for this program are to inspire exploration of the Bay Trail. Most of us know the Bay Trail near where we live, but I really want to inspire people to go to other parts. And that's what I've really learned over this past 6 months is there's just really neat places in the South Bay, in the North Bay. It's not all the same. That's the thing. It's not like, oh yeah, the Bay Trail in the South Bay is going to be just like it is here in the East Bay. So it's really a great way, especially now that we can't like travel, get on an airplane. We can experience so much locally. And then we want to rally excitement for the completion of the Bay Trail and get people on board to advocate, as like Najari and Bruce have done to build out the Bay Trail in Richmond, to keep access to the Richmond San Rafael Bridge, for example. We want to inspire you guys to be involved in that. And then celebrate San Francisco Bay and our public places, because we live in the Bay Area and we have this enormous body of water in the middle of our region. And maybe we sometimes think of it as an obstacle, but to me, it's really what makes where we live special. And we're lucky to have it. And I sometimes think, if we didn't have the Bay, what would it be like here? I think it would be like Los Angeles. It would be sprawling. We might all be Dodger fans, which I don't even want to think about. We're really lucky to have the Bay. And then this is a new one that I just added for this program. The goal is to build a community that reveals and publicizes the Bay Trail's hidden wonders. Like together, we can be interactive with this group that is on this call. And I've got an idea that I'm going to pitch to you guys later on in the program where we can work together to find some really cool information that I think we can all benefit from. Ethel, since you've been involved from the start, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, you just make me remember some of our first conversations about this and getting on the phone with Corinne and Lee. And frankly, I didn't know anything about the Bay Trail. So it was like I was the novice with it. And when everybody turned me onto it, I was out there and Don Edwards was great. And I was feeling kind of secluded, right, with COVID and everything. And then I went and I got these great cards. And the next thing you know, I've got something to do that's different. And I'm excited. I'm getting up in the morning. I'm going out and seeing what wonderful beauty is right in my backyard. And I think any COVID fatigue that I had just kind of started to dissipate because I had something to look forward to that was new and energizing. And it's been fabulous. And actually what I wanted to just pop in here and say, Bruce, I'm looking for people that are into walking the trail because I'm a hiker once I get out of this cast, and I'm not a biker. So I'm always listening for people that are hiking. So I'm going to be tapping on you in the future to join you and your wife on some of these Bay Trail hikes.
Sure thing.
And so there you go, building community from Richmond to San Francisco, making that bridge.
Yeah, and I think I like you talking about in conjunction with COVID. Like, the vaccine is going to protect us from the virus, but the Bay Trail is going to be what kind of saves our sanity. Keeps us really positive.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's jump into our first topic: Richmond, past, present, and future. And we really do want to talk about there's a history here and hopefully a glorious future, but we're going to spotlight 5 different places that we think you guys will really enjoy visiting. So going from south to north, the Meeker Slough, Shipyard 3, the Miller Knox Park and Nickel Knob as part of that, a place called Landfill Loop that doesn't seem like too many of you know about, that you'll really enjoy hearing about, and then the Dotson Family Marsh, which is part of Point Pinole. So we're going to get into that. And the Richmond section of the Bay Trail is so big that it actually requires 2 different map cards. So card number 13 and 14 encompass the Bay Trail. That's how big it is. It's 36 miles of Bay Trail that you have to experience in Richmond. And this is my exploration over the past month on my bicycle. So yeah, I know it'd be better if I was hiking, but I did get to some pretty interesting places.
Great job, Rodney.
It was fun. So let's go back to that history. In 1970, there were only 65 feet of access to the bay in Richmond. And today there's 36 miles of Bay Trail and 12 shoreline parks. And eventually we're going to have 42 miles of trail. So we have come a really long way, and we're going to talk about that history. This is that 65 feet. And I know Bruce and John, you kind of remember this, right?
Yeah, I was a young kid in Richmond at that time. Yeah, this is down by the old Point San Pablo Yacht Club near Cutting Canal. If you can believe it, in 1970, this was the only access to the bay in the city of Richmond, because at that time, most of the shoreline was under the control of either the military, of the railroad, of industry. And I think it's really important to note that it took battles of community activists to really fight for access for the shoreline. We're going to hear later about Whitney Dotson, folks like Lucretia Edwards, Barbara and Jay Vincent. They filed lawsuits. They did so much to advocate for opening this shoreline to residents. And then organizations like TRAC, Bruce and his colleagues have worked hard to fight for the Bay Trail. So I think we need to thank all of those individuals who really made it possible for us to have 36 miles of shoreline today, when this is all we had in 1970. And the battle's never over. It's ongoing. And we need this open space in an urban area, just like suburban and rural areas have their open space. We deserve it as well. And it came hard fought.
Yeah. This, by the way, is what it looks like today. It's actually not a boat ramp anymore. You can't back a car into it. But it's a neat little space. It's right off of Cutting Boulevard. And I have to say, I'd never been there before until last week. And I've biked past it probably 100 times. So that's another benefit of doing this program. And we'll have information on our show notes page where to find this. So if we talk about the history of the Bay in Richmond, of course, there was the Native American presence. It was a very rich presence. And we're going to do a whole show where we really talk about that and go into depth. We're not going to do that tonight, but we're on Native American land. We owe them a great debt. And unfortunately, we've totally transformed the natural ecosystem, and it's something we're trying to restore today. The big transformational event in Richmond, of course, was World War II, and all the workers that came into the shipyards. Many of them were women, and we have the Rosie the Riveter National Historic Park. Ethel's going to be talking about that later on. And a big African-American presence with a lot of those workers came from the South. Here's a wonderful photograph from Dorothea Lange. And this is the George Washington Carver. It was only the second naval ship named after an African-American, and it was built in the Richmond shipyards during World War II. But this is what it looked like after World War II. This is 1947 aerial view. We're looking down. This is I call it the Craneway Pavilion, but I should be calling it, Bruce, the Ford Assembly Plant.
Yes, correct.
Got to get my terminology correct. Here's a close-up of that. And so again, there was no public access at this point. The good news today, many of you probably know this, that it is restored, and it is a place for gatherings. And in normal times, you can go and see roller derby. I've always been meaning to do this. I haven't gotten around to it yet. There was a Bernie rally there about a year ago, right before the start of COVID. And today, John, you want to tell us about what's going on there now?
First, you should know this Craneway is part of the Ford building, which was built in 1928 by a well-known architect, last name Kahn. And it was a Ford auto plant until 1957. And then it was vacant for many years. And this Craneway is where the roller derby and other great events like the 4th of July concert happened. But our county leased this space during the pandemic. And you can see we set up a 250-bed medical center that we hope never to use. It's an overflow if hospitals get overflow too much, which they haven't. And by the way, during World War II, can you imagine first cranes going up and down this for auto assembly for Ford? And during World War II, more tanks and material went through this Craneway to supply the Pacific theater of World War II than any other place on the West Coast. So it's had an interesting history, and now it's helping win the battle against this pandemic. But it's a wonderful, wonderful building.
Yeah, I've been to, probably many of you out there have been to events there. This is an aerial view of Richmond today, and we're going to start diving into some of these places. So we're going to first start talking about Marina Bay in Meeker Slough, and this was John identified this as his favorite place. Kind of overview. People have been asking me about the ability of, like, for people with mobility issues, what are the best places? And this would be one of them for sure. It's really high quality paved trail, great for hiking, biking, birding, very safe if you bring your kids to bike there. Lots of benches, great proximity to the bay, a good place for bird watching. Dogs must be on a leash, although sometimes I see people not doing that, but it's really to protect the birds. They are supposed to be on a leash. And cyclists, it's very popular with cyclists, but we should be slowing down and calling out when we're near pedestrians. And John, tell us, like, why is this one of your favorite places on the bay?
Well, for me, this is really personal because this is what much of the bay shoreline was like in the 1800s, all the wetlands. And over time, we've lost most of those wetlands. And now there's a whole effort to bring them back. I serve on the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority, and we placed Measure AA on the ballot back in 2016 to actually fund wetland restoration projects like ones that look like Meeker Slough. And that, you know, it is amazing that 70% of residents in the Bay Area in all 9 counties voted to support a $12 a year parcel tax to raise $500 million for the Bay. And so you're going to see more projects like this around the Bay, great bird life. And at Meeker Slough, you know, there's a creek that comes out into the Bay, and you begin to appreciate the connection between creeks and our urban environment and the Bay, and why it's important to maintain the creeks as much as the Bay shoreline, because when you pollute a creek, you pollute the Bay. In fact, this area here, in fact, I want to sort of publicize every September on Coastal Cleanup Day. There you go. We have for the last 30 years, we've done a coastal cleanup along this portion of the trail. We get hundreds of people out, mostly young people, who just feel so energized at the end of that day for making their shoreline cleaner, and they learn a lot about, you know, in the environment, environmental stewardship. I'm so proud of the Richmond residents who fought to open this up for us and who continue to come out, especially young people, to maintain it for everyone in the Bay Area to come and enjoy. And so it's that is from 4th of July concert every year where thousands of people come. Actually, it's on the 3rd of July and enjoy the shoreline. So it's also, if you're out on the trail, it is so diverse. There's walkers and bikers, dog walkers, runners, people fishing, people bird watching, of every race and ethnicity. It's sort of a microcosm of our city, and it's a great community asset. And you know, we're going to talk later about social justice issues, but it is really something we all enjoy, and it brings us together. And the use of this portion of the trail has gone up so much during the pandemic. I mean, I live right on the trail and I'm out there every day, and it is amazing to see more people from not just Richmond, but around the East Bay coming and enjoying the trail during the day and on weekends.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's you know, I think it does seem like a popular place, but if you haven't been there, you're really gonna enjoy it. And you know, if you're in a walk, if you're using a walker or any kind of mobility device, it's going to be a very good place for you to go. I want to next talk about this is going to be me talking about Shipyard 3, which I don't think that many people have been to. It's known as the place where the Red Oak Victory ship is. And it is connected to a George Miller. We're going to talk about that in a second. So it's kind of over here. It is paved in a good condition, but you have to watch for obstacles, particularly if you're on a bike. There's some cracked pavement and some railroad tracks, so you have to just keep an eye out for. It is known for the Red Oak Victory Liberty ship. There are remnants of the shipyard in Richmond's industrial past. There's a whirly crane with ospreys, and there's a winery out there. I heard from somebody from maybe they're out there, and if they are, they're welcome to put their URL into the chat. But you can do wine tasting out there, and I haven't done that yet. I'm looking forward to it.
Great place. Good wine there.
Yeah, it's like, I think Rhone kind of blends. Here's the Red Oak Victory. You're not going to be able to tour it until after the pandemic, but it is a wonderful thing to behold when you go in there. These are the osprey up on this whirly crane. They're not there right now. They'll be there later on in the spring, and I think there's a webcam that shows you what they're doing. But this is kind of what the little osprey chicks look like. Pretty cool.
Hey, Rodney, Karen Buchanan, who is with the Point Richmond History Association. In fact, she's on here, I see, and she and I have done some walking tours at Marina Bay, says she's a stickler for details. The Red Oak is a victory ship. So they're a little bigger than the Liberty ships. And she posted in here, they're a victory ship.
This is why it's so good that this is an interactive show. We do fact checking on the fly here, folks. So I appreciate that. Thank you, John, and I want to get stuff right. And if I've got something wrong and you want to mention it in chat, that's cool too. Thank you, Karen. This is the winery that is right next to the Red Oak Victory ship. Victory ship, right?
Yes.
Good. And then we've got this thing called the General Warehouse. And Bruce I didn't know about this, even though I'd seen it many times. Bruce, what's the story with this General Warehouse?
Well, you would never guess from looking at that fortress, but it was to store everything that went into fitting out a ship. Imagine launching a ship. All you had were the steel plates of the hull and the decks. You had in this warehouse, everything else was needed for the galley, the stove, the pots and pans, the dishware, the tableware, the mattresses. Most of the troop ships were built here at Shipyard 3. The radio equipment, the ammunition, the guns. So the general warehouse contained all this stuff to outfit the ship once it had been structurally built and in the water floating.
Yeah, thanks for that, Bruce. And it's kind of neat to know the history behind some of these places. Now we want to, John, you've got another favorite place. We let John pick two. The Nickel Knob, which is part of Miller Knox Regional Shoreline. And here's kind of my overview. By the way, all of this information is on our website, on the show notes, so you guys can get access to this. Great place for hiking and photography, but it is kind of steep, challenging terrain. This would not be a great place to go if you have any kind of mobility issue. There are some benches. You're not allowed to bike on any of the trails there. So, for me, I'll have to lock my bike up and walk up, but you get amazing panoramic views. And John, tell us more about Nickel Knob.
So Nickel Knob is that if you're on 580, getting toward the Santa Fe Bridge, it's that little hill that you see off to the side. It's the upper part of Miller Knox Park. And let me tell you, it has the best 360-degree views. Now, the top of Angel Island is beautiful as well. But what's great about Nickel Knob is you have the city on one side and the bay and San Francisco on the other. So you really get a sense of this is up from up there looking toward the city. And if you look east, you look toward the city of Richmond and the East Bay Hills. So you could see this interface between urban life and the bay and how important it is to have the bay and this open space as part of our urban environment. So on any day, it's beautiful, 360-degree views. Go to the top of Crest and just walk, on the ridge, and you can then walk down into Point Richmond if you like. But the views are just stunning up there. And again, Richmond resident Lucretia Edwards actually donated the land for the top of, I think, Lee, I'm right, it's Lucretia, for the top of Nickel Knob, which became part of the East Bay Regional Park District. Again, an example of local residents who really made this happen.
Yeah, a lot of great kind of heroic stories. We're going to hear another one in a moment. Let's move on to Landfill Loop, which maybe doesn't sound, it sounds like an odd name for a really great place to go, but I've really been enjoying it. Great place for hiking, birding, and solitude. You're not going to run into very many people there. This is where you could go on a weekend and you'll still get plenty of space there. And the trail quality, it's flat, compact, crushed rock, which you actually could probably navigate with a wheelchair or a walker. But right now, with it being wet, I wouldn't recommend it. Plenty of benches, good place to go sit and eat lunch. Amazing bird life. That's the real draw of this place. You're going to definitely want to bring your binoculars. Some good interpretative signage. Dogs are absolutely prohibited. This is a place primarily for the birds, so please respect that. Bikes are permitted. And it's important to know that there are limited hours and it's closed on major holidays. But Bruce, tell us, why do you love Landfill Loop so much?
Well, it has incredible vistas across San Pablo Bay, as you can see here in this photo. The Landfill Loop is the green area in the lower center of the photo. And it's situated between two huge tidal marshes. On the left, the tidal marsh at the mouth of Wildcat Creek, and on the right, the marsh at the mouth of San Pablo Creek. So this is a 3-mile loop trail built and, wait, back up a moment.
Sorry.
Built and maintained by Republic Services. So unlike most parts of the Bay Trail that are maintained by public agency, this is maintained by Public Services, and that's why the hours are a little shorter. It's not an active landfill. It's just a transfer station now. And on top, all the household green waste is being crushed, ground up and fermented into compost. In the background, you see in the distance, great views are available at Mount Tamalpais, and then between Tamalpais and the landfill is Point San Pablo, sticking out into the bay. So if you can advance the slide now, you'll see the orientation map when you arrive there. It'll help you get oriented. There's also a higher elevation trail that parallels the 3-mile Bay Trail loop. And most of it is tidal. All the blue area is tidewaters, but on the south side of the landfill, the gray and the orange are freshwater, seasonal freshwater, big ponds. So you get quite a mix of bird life between the freshwater and the saltwater. So if you could go through the rest of the slides, Rodney, you can see this is the open ribbon cutting. This opened in 2011. On the left, the two gentlemen are unfortunately deceased. Larry Birch, the landfill environmental manager, and Whitney Dotson. And then you recognize John and me there with Mayor Tom Butt. Continue on with the slides, if you would. So these are just, you can scroll through them, some ideas of the wonderful views you have there. The habitats. And as Rodney said, there's solitude. It's a good wide trail. There aren't many people there. It's really terra incognita for most people. So it's a good place for social distancing and enjoying the great views and the bird life. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, that's, by the way, I don't know if Doug Donaldson's on the call, but boy, that is just a fabulous photograph. And yeah, wonderful place to visit. We were just there a couple days ago, and just had a great time walking around, looking at the bird life. You can sit on the bench and really take it all in.
In Small World, that's where Rodney and I first met, that's about a month ago, wasn't it?
It was really funny. I think I hadn't gotten in touch with you yet about this show, but that's where we met, and I had been meaning to, so very fortuitous. Yeah. So now we're going to talk about the Dotson Family Marsh and Point Pinole, and Najari, well, you'll tell us more about it. I'll just mention that it's really good. Again, this is a place with really good trail quality. In fact, if you go here, like say you take a child who wants to bike, a young child, that child could bike very safely for many miles because this connects to Point Pinole. It's well paved, just really, really good for that. So great for hiking, biking, really good birding there. Some nice benches, again, really good views. And it provides safe access to Point Pinole, which did not exist until this thing opened up in 2017. So Najari, tell us about the Dotson family that the Dotson Family Marsh is named for.
Oh yeah, sure. So the Dotson family, they did a lot of work to preserve Point Pinole as open outdoor space, natural space. As a matter of fact, to this day, the streets throughout Park Chester Village, in close proximity to Point Pinole, all those streets are named after African-American pastors that his family worked to organize to preserve that space. Now, I did want to talk a little bit about connectivity, and I'll wrap right around back to one of the most special moments that I had with Whitney Dotson. You know, I remember our first trip to what our organization does is that we do special rides, group rides to take people to some of these outdoor spaces. We couldn't, the first time we did it, we went along Giant Road. You know, this is before the Dotson Family March Trail was there. It was arduous. We did it to plan a ride to the Richmond Shoreline Festival, which Whitney Dotson would help put on to host. Needless to say, Giant Road, narrow, lots of traffic, not very welcoming. The Dotson March Trail opened up in 2017. In 2018, we did another group ride, much more pleasant. It was a magical. One of the most magical parts was having Whitney Dotson while he was still here with us, there to present to the dozens of families that came out that day, to tell them about the history of advocacy that it took to preserve the park.
Yeah, if I could just jump in and just say, like, the Dotsons are real heroes. You know, you and I both remember what it was like to try to get to Point Pinole before this was completed, and then it's just such a beautiful space, you know, that could have been turned into something, like turned into an airport or something like that. So, you know, this is Black History Month, and these people are giants of the Bay conservation movement.
Yes, Whitney was a charter member of Track Steering Committee. They went on to serve as a director of the board of directors of East Bay Regional Park District. So it's quite a legacy.
Yes.
Anything you want to add on the Dotson Family Marsh, Najari?
Beautiful space, you know, right along the marsh, going up along the water. The Ream Creek meets up with the rest of the bay and into the ocean there. We've done many rides going into Point Pinole Park, using the trail, the Dotson Family Marsh Trail. It's you know, when I think about how many new environmental stewards Whitney Dotson inspired by being there to talk and tell about the power that people have to maintain and advocate for the care of our outdoor spaces. You know, I'm touched, and I still remember. I still know a lot of the children. I've seen them grow up from that time to this time, and who still remember that. You know.
Yeah. So very special.
That theme that Najari talked about is this generational fight to preserve the shoreline from the folks like, as I mentioned, Lucretia Edwards and the Vincents back in the 70s to Whitney Dotson, you know, in the 90s, really longer 80s, 90s, and currently. It shows the power of a single individual or group of people to make a difference, to fight for open space. Right. And as Najari said, I mean, Najari, your efforts to take people out on bike rides along the trail, I think, are inspiring another young new generation of folks who are going to fight to preserve and expand the shoreline.
This is a good lead into our second topic, which is social justice on the Bay Trail. And because I think that's exactly, we're talking about this, that's really what we want to go into. And this, by the way, is a wonderful mural that I just ran into a few days ago by Rebecca Garcia Gonzalez, who may be on the call tonight.
She is. She's on.
Yeah, it's right where Carlson meets the Richmond Greenway. It's not actually on the Bay Trail, but it's a very important connector to the Bay Trail, called Essential Workers of the Pullman Neighborhood. So there's just another thing to really enjoy are all these wonderful murals that celebrate the community. And I also love the fact that so many of these people are wearing masks. So it's very topical. And that little sign says, I think it says, please wear a mask. This is Najari's organization, Rich City Rides, in a ride that they had done from the bike shop in downtown Richmond to the Rosie the Riveter National Historic Park. And we're going to talk about kind of how you get there, which does involve the Richmond Wellness Trail. So Najari, tell us about, these, how social justice relates to the ability of your group to be able to get around safely in Richmond.
Right on. So going straight through, the heart of Richmond is the Richmond Greenway Trail, now called the Lily Mae Jones Trail. We used to be a railway with the help of organizations like Rails to Trails and Friends of the Richmond Greenway. It was converted into a bike path. Now a 3-mile bike path going from 2nd Street down to San Pablo, with many really beautiful projects that are happening to make this space more welcoming. So this is a work of community coming together to create these outdoor spaces that we can celebrate and have as social activity hubs. This space right here, as a matter of fact, is one of the most active members out there on the Greenway is Urban Tilth. This is one of their community gardens. This picture right here is on the eastern end of the Greenway. So, it's important that with one of the things that having this trail does is that it connects us to the Bay Trail. The space called where we now do our rides, Unity Park, located at 16th and Ohio, is a location where we've been fortunate enough with the support of our community, and we've been able to provide over 2,700 bikes to community members who lack access to healthy activity, and been able to take them to these places like, as we just mentioned, Landfill Loop, Millinox Park, Lucretia Edwards Park, that are really just a few miles away, but getting there is it's an accessibility issue. And that takes us into projects like the Richmond Wellness Trail. The Richmond Wellness Trail traverses through many parts of the Richmond Greenway. Part of the trail will take you going straight down Marina Way, will bring you straight to the Richmond to the Richmond Bay Trail, or to the Bay Trail itself. Right along the Richmond Greenway Trail, we have the bike hub at Unity Park at 16th and Ohio. We've begun gathering. We've done hundreds of rides going all throughout Richmond. We've been to all the parks in Richmond. And some of the best rides have been when we've been able to make it to our regional parks. And allowing community members who may not have felt so welcomed in many of these areas to be able to experience these areas and know that these parks are their parks too. There is a project that's being planned that will create more connectivity along the Greenway. There's the thank you, the 5-mile loop. This the Richmond Wellness Trail is going to be a 5-mile loop that will take you from the Richmond BART down through Marina Way, meet at the Rosie the Riveter Visitor Center, come right back up Harbor Way, and it'll be a loop that it's the idea of parks as medicine, outdoor activity as medicine, nature as a healing force. Just And, if you can imagine, take a ride in the morning and, a doctor was actually prescribing some outdoor activity and having this access to it that all community members can enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about how everyone should feel welcome in these places. And we really need that. Like, if we're going to keep access to the Richmond San Rafael Bridge, we want to get as many people on that bridge as possible. And it also helps us build the case to close the gaps on the Bay Trail.
Right.
If this thing is seen as only being used by a subset of the population, that's not gonna cut it. So I'm really,
Najari's point of the wellness trail is so important because it connects the Bay Trail to the heart of Richmond, and it makes the Bay Trail truly accessible, more accessible, right, for Richmond residents, urban residents. And I know Najari and others have been really strong advocates for closing that gap on 23rd Street. I've ridden that myself. It's a real hassle, right, and dangerous to have to go down the Greenway, get off on 23rd, navigate that, and get back on the trail. So that's got to be a high priority, is closing that 23rd Street gap. And for those of you who are living in Berkeley or Oakland, you can get here by taking, the Ohlone Greenway in El Cerrito, another former railroad right-of-way. To actually, up and on Hearst in North Berkeley, you can get on the Greenway on Hearst near Martin Luther King, and it'll take you all the way in to El Cerrito, cross over San Pablo Avenue onto the Richmond Greenway, down the Greenway to Marina Way, and then Marina Way to the Bay Trail. So you access it easily from downtown Berkeley.
But we do have that gap.
Mind the gap.
And that's another social justice issue, right? Is how do we close these gaps? And I want to talk about a gap that recently got closed, Goodrick Avenue, very close to the Dotson Family Marsh. This whole section, like right now on the map card, it's a dotted line. I think we have Patrick Phelan from City of Richmond, who was very involved in this. Patrick, are you able to unmute and say a few words about this?
I am. Thanks a lot, Rodney, and thanks everyone. And I'll also thank Bruce Byert because he worked on the grant application to make this project happen. It was funded by a Measure J grant and is complete now and connects the Richmond Parkway up to the new Dotson Family Marsh staging center. So I hope everyone can check it out and enjoy it. And we still have a lot of work to make more of these connections to the Bay Trail. One of the issues here on the Parkway is that you actually can't cross the street on the Parkway right there. So if you live in North Richmond, you can't walk across the Parkway there to get onto this trail. So there's a lot of work we want to still do to actually connect people safely to the Bay Trail.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Yeah, it's really nice. There's like a lot of potholes and stuff, and it's just very narrow here. You could easily see this being a dangerous place for people to ride. So that's a great accomplishment. I did want to, Najari, do we want to talk about anything else in relation to social justice in the Bay Trail?
Absolutely. We have a great audience here. A lot of advocates and trail users. Whatever way that you use the trail, be it hiking, biking, skating, jogging. And we, as John mentioned, you have the trail is vast. You have the Ohlone Trail, which connects to the Richmond Greenway Trail, which takes you to Bay Trail. Trail can take you over several bridges now. I want our audience to think about times when you've been on the trail and you've seen one of the members of our unhoused community. And these are people that have been through something. We live in a very prosperous state. Poverty is an antiquated thing that shouldn't exist, and everybody deserves to have a roof over their head. So in the advocacy work that you do and the social justice work that you do, I want you to consider opportunities where we can fight for housing justice, fight for care of our unhoused community members, so that we have safer outdoor spaces for all.
Yeah, we can't just be going by and ignoring these people. And I go by some homeless encampments throughout the Bay Area on the Bay Trail, and when I see someone, I do make eye contact and I tell them I hope they stay healthy, and we've got to do better. So thanks for raising that, Najari. I agree. It's something we have to take responsibility for.
To add to something Najari said is that we're seeing, because of the lack of housing and policies for people who are homeless, which we're all fighting for more funding from the federal government and the state to handle this at the local level. We are seeing more and more homeless individuals living in our open spaces, in our parks, whether they're along the Bay Trail, not just in Richmond, but elsewhere, in parks, on freeway, off ramps. It's because of the failure of the system. And we need to absolutely do something about that. And we all have power as individuals, whether it's the power to fight for open space, the power to, as Najari says, fight for housing justice, and really get the funding and resources we need to provide that housing at the local level.
Great. Well, thanks for your leadership on that, John. And I think we do want to wrap this up. We're running a little late, but we've got our photography contest, which maybe is helping us think about environmental justice, because we're going to be talking about birds on or near the Bay Trail and the amazing bird life that we get to see. This is one, the Baltimore Orioles. This is a very rare sighting of an Oriole crossing home plate at Oracle Park. It doesn't happen very often. They've been struggling for many years, but we had wonderful entries from all of these folks. 18 different people sent in wonderful bird photographs, and we had to cull them down to just 6 for you guys to vote on. And I'm going to go ahead and share the poll, but they've got letters by them. So you'll see A through F, and I'm going to go ahead and start the poll, and you guys will get to vote. I mean, hopefully, well, I'm going to let you see all of them before you vote. That's only fair. Here's B. And I'll go through them twice, and then you'll actually have a place where you can see them again. C, D, E, and F. Let's go back through them in reverse order. So think about which one you like best, and I'll go ahead and launch the poll in a second. And I'm not allowed to vote in this. In fact, I didn't even get to vote in the preliminary round where we cut it down to 6. So I'm not responsible for what we ever decide. The winner is going to get a set of Bay Trail cards. And I do have a slide where you can see them all. And I will give you guys, 30 seconds. Is that fair? What do you think, Ethel?
Race to the finish.
Yeah, we'll give you till the minute mark. But I do really want to thank the photographers for entering these. We're going to talk in a second about next month's photography contest, which I think is going to be a great theme. And also, we had a really nice bird photo that got entered after the deadline, but I'm going to show it to you guys anyway. And you got 5 more seconds to vote.
Look at the size of those turkeys, man.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Okay, I'm ending the poll. I'm going to share. I think I forgot to do that last time. I'm going to share the results so you guys can see. It looks like D,
turkeys.
D came in first place, 30%. Second place is going to be C.
Oh, A.
No, A. D, A,
C.
and
C.
F. No, D, A, and C. Sorry, folks. I'm D, A, and C. So we don't need. The second question was for a tiebreaker. D, A, and C. thank you very much for helping us choose that. And then just get a load of this. Is a really, I don't know if Joy Tren is on the call, but it's a beautiful photograph. And sorry that we couldn't consider it, but I wanted to adhere to the rules. And we're going to do these photo contests every month. Here are the photographers. So the winner is Peter Townsend, those turkeys that people are intrigued by. Second place is going to be David Cohen. In third place is going to be
Greta.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Manu and Greta Schnetzler. And speaking of Greta and Manu Schnetzler, they have an exhibition going on right now in San Francisco. You can go see their photographs live at a gallery south of Market. And I got to go this past weekend. They're really, really nice photographs. This is one of their bird photographs that they did not enter in the contest. And I kind of wonder if they might have won if they had done that. So you can go to the art gallery at 1246 Folsom. That's between 8th and 9th Street. It's open Saturdays between 12 and 3. You can also send them an email and arrange for them to meet you if that time is not convenient. But they've been really helpful to me with the show. I really appreciate them. And I encourage you guys to check out their photographs. They're actually going to be doing a program with me on March 8th for my art viewing adventures. So we'll have that to look forward to. So the March photo contest is going to be bridges on the Bay Trail. And please submit a photograph that shows a bridge on the Bay Trail. And I did notice that one of the photographs of the birds was actually on Ocean Beach, not really on the Bay Trail, but I wasn't strict about that. But I think from now on, we're going to want something that's either, within about half a mile of the Bay Trail or a park that's on the Bay Trail. If it's a park, that's fine. But yes, something photograph like this, probably better than this. This is my photograph, and you surely can do better than that. And submit them to me by February 24th by midnight. And we'll be judging that on the March 3rd show. And send the email to my my email address with that subject. It does make it a lot easier for me if you use the subject. And this is all on my webpage. So that brings us to classified information. And first, we got Ethel talking about the Rosie the Riveter rally and all things Rosie the Riveter in Richmond. Tell us about that.
So yeah, Rosie the Riveter, I was really attracted to for a number of reasons that I'll talk about in a minute, but it's really the Rosie Riveter Memorial that's located in the Marina Bay Park that we're talking about. And it opened in the year 2000, and it tells the story of what Roosevelt would have called the arsenal of democracy. And we've alluded to the Richmond shipyards, and I think I just want to underscore that with some of the reading that I did about Richmond, because I'm not out there walking. It said that the Richmond shipyards were the most productive in all of history, in essence, really producing like 747 ships for the war effort. So just absolutely amazing, I think. And the Rosie Riveter Memorial stands to honor the women that were behind that effort. And we know that the branding for Rosie is a white woman, with her biceps up there and the red kerchief. But it's not fair and it's not accurate, because in fact, there were millions of Rosies that were women of color, and in fact, over 500,000 Black Rosies. And you don't hear much about that story or their stories. And I think that's kind of typical when you look at, who's telling the story. The story of history is usually told by so many white people that it's just another form of injustice and incorrect history. And so I did do some research to find some information about the Rosies of color. And there is a really good documentary. It's called The Invisible Warriors. It was directed by Gregory Cook. And I'm putting a shout out to anybody else who has any information about the Rosies the Rosies of color, quite frankly. So I was really drawn to this because of the motto that goes with Rosie, which is, we can do it. Thinking about us entering our second year of COVID, that we actually can get through it. And with that in mind, Rodney has talked about the winner of the photography contest getting these cards, which I swear by, which are great to have if you're walking or biking the trail. But the winner's also going to get one of these masks, which says, "We can get through this," just to kind of add a little bit of fun to wearing a mask, noting that these really are fun masks. And in order to be really safe, you need to have another protective mask underneath. But so you'll get one of these as well. So once it opens, you can certainly go out to the memorial, but then to go to the museum once it opens, I think is absolutely on my list, and I hope to many others. And I'm not sure, Rodney, is this the photo from Michigan?
No, that's
what's
that
this?
was,
You go ahead, John. Tell us about this.
I'm trying to. So for a couple years, there's been a competition between Richmond and Michigan on the largest number of Rosies or people dressed up as Rosies. You can see some of us. That's Ben Choi, who used to be on the city council, myself. So, it's gone on and it's a back and forth thing. Richmond wins one year, Michigan wins the next. It's been a couple years since we've had one in Richmond. But I need to say something about Betty Reed Soskin, since you talked about Black Rosie. So Betty Reed Soskin is the oldest park ranger in the national park system. She's an African-American woman in her 90s, lives in Richmond, a lot of local roots. And if you watch the Ken Burns special, she is on the national park. She is in it. When the pandemic is over and the visitor center is open again, Betty has done a talk every week at the visitor center right there on the Bay Trail, and you'll want to hear her. I remember being with her when there was the opening of the visitor center a number of years ago, and this was before she became a park ranger. And she said, I remember this clearly, she said, "I'm not sure how I feel about this park." And I said, why is that? She says, because, there was a lot of racism and discrimination that happened in the shipyards.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that story, right? It should be told, the good, the bad, and the ugly about this park. Well, she is now a park ranger and tells that story. She talks about what was good, what was bad, what the opportunities for women were, what the racism against African Americans. So get a chance when the pandemic's over, you're on a bike ride or walk along the Bay Trail, time it so that you can hear her talk. Hopefully she'll be well enough to be back. She, as I say, she's in her mid or late 90s.
Wow.
So this show, we always want to reveal hidden gems of the Bay Trail. And I think Betty sounds like she definitely qualifies.
Yeah.
So thanks for that, Ethel.
Sure.
Lee's going to tell us about like a really cool place that you wouldn't know about off of that Point Malati area. Lee, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, so this is one of the many artworks that are out near Point St. Pablo Yacht Harbor. If you look at the Bay Trail maps, I'm not sure we have that available right now for Point Malati and Point St. Pablo.
Actually,
the Bay Trail, there you go. So you can see that the Bay Trail is planned from, where the toll plaza is roughly all the way out to Point St. Pablo Yacht Harbor. There's a great beach there, Point Malati Beach Park, that already exists that people, it's a secret right now, but maybe not after 200 some people on this call, but it's a great place to hang out. But this will give me a chance to pitch it. Although that artwork out there at Point San Pablo Yacht Harbor is really worth going out and checking out. You can see this really weird thing that I'm not even sure what it is, but it's amazing looking. It's actually really huge. I want to say it's about 15 to 20 feet tall. It sort of reminds me a little bit of like, the kind of overactive 1970s like science fiction movies they used to make. You'd go out there in that little doorway and there's, if you see a different picture, there's actually a little urn-like thing in there. I feel like there's going to be some sort of like, crystal ball you touch and you get transported to a different galaxy or something. But anyways, this place is full of like really interesting artwork like that. Although this alligator is huge. I don't even really know. I can't even describe how big it is, but it's really neat looking. It's the first thing you see as you drive down the Point San Pablo Yacht Harbor. But anyways, the point is, it's an interesting, wild place to go check out. Unfortunately, the Bay Trail, as we saw in the maps earlier, doesn't really get out there yet, although it's planned to go out there. But this gives me a chance to kind of pitch a future Bay Trail alignment that's going to get done soon as the Point Mulade Bay Trail segment. It's 2.5 miles long. It'll go from where the trail is right now, lands on the Richmond San Rafael Bridge side, and it'll go right up to Point Mulade Beach Park. It's going to be built partly by East Bay Regional Park District and partly by the city of Richmond. And they recently just got full funding for both of those projects. So they're going to move ahead and build it, and hopefully it'll be done by the end of this year, and there'll be a ribbon cutting and people will be able to get out there. It's partly funded by grants from East Bay Regional Park District, a gift from Chevron, and we also had monies from the Priority Conservation Area program over at MTC and the Coastal Conservancy. So there's a lot of funds that are going into this, but it's a really interesting space. If you're a hardcore bicyclist, the roads actually got repaved out there fairly recently. You can bike through there, but there's no trail again. If you're walking, you probably would want to take your car out there. So take a peek. It's a wild, wild place.
Great. Well, thanks
from the Burning Man Festival. The sculptors didn't sell them. They needed a place to park them, and this is a beautiful place to display them.
Wow.
Cool. Perpetual Burning Man.
Yeah.
So my confidential information is actually I'm gonna launch another poll, and I want to ask you guys, just guess how many park benches you think there are on the Bay Trail, just in total. Just like take a guess.
Around the whole Bay Area?
The whole Bay Trail. How many do you think there are? So just go ahead and try to figure that out. And then I'm asking a question. Who would like to help me figure out what the best park bench is on the Bay Trail? Because that was definitely one of the things, as I started exploring, I started thinking, like, which one of these things is the best? And I'll give you another 10 seconds to finish up the poll. And then I'll tell you more about that. But I have this thing, I want to create something called Best of the Bay Trail. And it's going to be something we do together. So I'm ending the poll. I will share the results. It looks like the majority thinks it's between 1,000 and 2,000. Lee, tell us, as a member of the Bay Trail Project, exactly how many park benches are there on the Bay Trail?
I don't even know the answer to that.
No, we don't know the answer.
Yeah,
so
I think
that's the answer.
So sorry, folks. Everyone's probably going to like jump off the call now. They're probably that's like bad pool or something. But here's the thing: we're getting so many people interested in the Bay Trail on this program, and we have people all around the Bay Area. We can collaboratively work together to do some really cool things. Like we could, if people want to do this, we could pick quadrants of the trail and count the benches, and then come up with that total ourselves. And then what I really want to do is start thinking about like some contests, like what is the best park bench on the Bay Trail? We could get some nominations. We could use polls to determine which ones we like best. And then I've got my webpage. I can start sharing information, about what is the best park bench? What is the best place for a birthday party? What is the best segment on the Bay Trail, which is that's going to be very contentious. But actually, even if your favorite doesn't win, it'd be valuable to have just a ranking of these top places. So that's something I'm going to launch, and I'm going to ask people who are being involved in this community we've created on this show to help me determine what is the best of the Bay Trail, and provide information that I think people will find really valuable.
Hey, so Rodney, there's a question in here that's saying you better define what is a bench.
Right.
Right. We're going to have to figure out like what is a park bench? Where, like, again, like what is the proximity to the Bay Trail? So we
need a photo contest of the best photos of a bench on the Bay Trail.
Well, this one, by the way, is like, this is a great bench. this is what inspired it, actually. This bench is at Coyote Hills Regional Park. We talked about it on the first show. But there's so many great benches. Like we could definitely have some good fights about where the best bench is.
Yeah, but I think Ethel's right though. We're gonna have to define what a bench is, or is it a seating area? Because just thinking about Richmond, that area near Lucretia Edwards Park has these wonderful stairways that people use as seating areas all the time.
Oh.
Yeah. Or people have built benches out of piers and pilings that have washed ashore on the beach there by Meeker Slough, or just stones. So people have created their own seating areas, and they're great spots.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think those would all count, right? I mean, creative. I'm not so sure about sitting on the stairs counting as a bench, but
yeah, I don't know about that.
Somebody's made it.
So there's going to be some interesting discussions. I think that's what I'm hearing is we've got to define our terms, but I think if we could just tell people, like, here are 10 really cool places to sit on the Bay Trail, that would be valuable. So that's what I'm proposing we do. And I'll put it in the survey if you want to let me know that you're interested in working with me on this. The goal is to come back to this show with a group of benches to consider and then voting on them.
Yeah, and why? Why you think it's the best, right?
Yeah. Okay, so that is going to be the official end of the show. We've got something cool, I think, that I... So I think SJUC says between the slough and Point Isabel. Jean says behind Costco and Albany Dog Park. And Kristen nails it between Point Isabel and the Meeker Slough. Well, actually, no, it's actually right behind the Costco. That's a really good park bench, but we're not going to say it's the best one until we have our little contest. I want to remind everyone we're going to be doing this again first Wednesday of March. We're going to be talking about the Carquinez Strait. Wonderful trails. The George Miller Trail is there. Wonderful places on the northern shore near Benicia. And we're going to be talking about the San Francisco Bay Water Trail and what someone can do who's maybe never been in a kayak on San Francisco Bay. That is actually me. I've never been on the bay in a kayak. I'm going to try to do that within the next month and report back to you guys. Here are the photo credits for folks that submitted photos that we showed, and this will be on our website. We always want to show our appreciation to photographers. And this is Rebecca Garcia Gonzalez, who did that amazing mural. Special thank you to Maureen Gaffney of this Bay Trail project. My wife, Sarah, who was admitting people. She was the moderator. Patrick Phelan of Richmond. Robert Rogers helped me we're going to see about the Facebook live feed. I have a feeling it didn't actually come off. And Corinne Debray, who has been a big help. And now I'm going to make it so you guys can share. Like, we're going to ask people to raise their hands, but I'm going to make it so you guys can unmute yourselves and we can make this a little more interactive. I want to apologize for really not being able to look at a lot of the chat while this was going on. It's just kind of hard to do while we're doing a show. But if you can raise your hand.
I want to say hi to Patrick. I now that I can see you. Hey, Patrick.
Hey, John. Yeah, I've been running into John on the Bay Trail. Rodney, if I could cut in real quick.
Please do.
Thank you. This was an amazing program, and I was looking at a lot of the chat. And a bunch of people asked about the gap in the Richmond Greenway. And I wanted to let everyone know that the city partnered with Rails to Trails, the local government commission, and Pogo Park. And we successfully applied to the Caltrans Sustainable Communities grant program. And we will be starting a study called the Greenway Gap Closure and Connectivity Study this year, which will hopefully be the first step in closing that gap. And so I wanted everyone to know about that. I put my email in the chat if anyone wants to get involved with that. It has not started yet, but we're getting close to getting started on that. And I wanted to also mention that the city has grant funding to build protected bikeways, cycle tracks on Cutting Boulevard and on Harbor Way South and on Hoffman. So basically doing a quick build project to improve these on-street portions of the trail. So thanks a lot, Rodney, and everyone else that's on the program.
Patrick, thanks for all your work. You have an important role in this. Thank you.
You know, Richmond is such a wonderful community. I live in Berkeley, and I feel more connected with Richmond than I do with Berkeley. So thanks, everyone.
Yeah, and I have a strong interest in that 23rd Street closure, and I think this program will want to report on your progress on that. So that's great news.
You know, Rodney, one thing we didn't talk about is there is a ferry to San Francisco from the Ford building. I don't think we talked about it.
Let me just say I like it because I feel very safe on it. It seems like a really good option during COVID time, so yeah. I'm using it. What else do you want to say about that?
Well, no, so if you're biking or walking on the Bay Trail, you can take a little diversion and take the ferry to San Francisco. Or if you're in San Francisco, you can take the ferry over to Richmond and walk along the Bay Trail and then ferry back to San Francisco.
Yeah, it's great. That I've been taking the ferry and doing like biking. I'll take the ferry over to San Francisco and bike all the way back. That's kind of my ambitious thing. I see a couple of hands raised. I'm going to call on SJUC first, and then someone with the last name of Kleiman, I think, will be next. So go ahead, SJUC. If you can unmute. I've made it so you guys can unmute, right?
Sorry, yes. I just wanted to add for the Rosie the Riveter, it's so amazing that you can actually access a national park on foot or bike. And Rosie the Riveter is one of them. There's several in San Francisco. The park is currently closed, but it will at least have trailside tables available when the county goes down another tier. They did for a little while when things were more open, and they will again. And as a docent at the park, I say, keep checking the website. It's not updated as well as maybe I'd like it to be, but there are lots of ways to interact with the park, and there's lots of markers along the trail to learn more about the history. So if you haven't had a chance to do that, you can still do that during COVID and have wonderful walks. And I also want to give another shout out to Rich City Rides because they do a fabulous job.
Totally agree with you. And I cannot wait for the park to reopen because I'm going to want to go back there. The next person I want to call on is someone who's just physically raising their hand. It says Karen Kleiman, but.
No, this is Alan Jensen.
Oh, Alan, please.
Karen is my sweetheart. Yeah. And she uses this computer a lot. I just want to say,
you taking your recumbent bike? Have you? I haven't seen you with your recumbent bike.
Let me finish. After I have my hip surgery, I'll hope to get back on my bicycle. I haven't been out for a long time. And Bruce, you know that I've been trying to get in touch with the Rosie people to get some of their trail guides that I go around and put in the pockets over there. And I especially want to thank everybody that was involved in putting this thing together. Even though my photograph didn't make the final cut, I did see one that Bruce had put in a publication of his that actually came by in that collage that you showed on the other parts of the Bay Trail Bridge, and that was the one that had the blue heron and a couple of other birds out by one of the creeks, and it's one that's been used in other publications. So thank you so much.
Sure, Alan. I have to say I really liked your bird picture. I would have voted for it because it's
you didn't see it.
It's a clap. I forget. It's a
Clapper rail.
Clapper rail.
Rail. Yes.
By the way, I'm learning the birding stuff. Those of you who were on the last show know I'm not much of a birder, but I've made a lot of progress in the last month. Thank you very much, Alan.
Alan was the president of the Marina Bay Neighborhood Council and also fought for Shoreline. So thanks, Alan, for your activism.
There you go. Before we move on, I just wanted to finish up something from one of the earlier questions, talking about different ways to engage in the Rosie or River Park. Just want to let people know that there is an audio tour that can be downloaded through your smartphone. That's called Visit. When there's one that starts right at the front door of the Rosie River Visitor Center. It's self-guided. All you need to do is download the program and just walk your way around there, and you'll be guided through voice, through Doug McConnell's voice. Yeah. I don't know if everyone knows Doug McConnell, but he used to be on Bay Area back roads.
Right.
Road. So I'm going to include a link in the chat here that shows you how to get Visit.
Yeah, Lee's comment about the audio tour is very good because the Rosie Park has a visitor center, which is closed, which is great. But scattered throughout the Marina Bay area are all sorts of sculptural and some landscape style interpretive exhibits that tell the story of the Rosies and the transformation of Richmond during World War II. There's a lot to see there, even though the visitor center is closed in the Marina Bay area and the Shipyard 3 Trail too.
Yeah, thanks for that, Bruce. And I just want to take a second to really thank Bruce, Najari, and John, who I live so close to Richmond. I thought I knew Richmond pretty well. And I have to say, I think I know Richmond better than most people in Kensington. Maybe some of you who live in Kensington will want to fight with me over that. But these guys revealed so much to me over the past month. And I'm really grateful to all of you for your time and your love of Richmond, because I've always really liked Richmond, and now I've discovered all kinds of new places. Let me call on Joe Barry, who's had his hand raised.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I wanted to say that I recently tried to ride the whole Bay Trail on bicycle back in October, November, when things were a little more open for a little while. And it was a great experience. Everybody was very nice. Facilities were a little bit limited because of COVID, but I found places to stay. Two things I noticed that are really missing. And I wonder if people officially associated with the Bay Trail could, speak to this if there's any plans to do anything along these lines. One is that it is tremendously variable whether the signage on the trail. Some places it's really good and you could ride the trail without a map or without GPS. Other places it's just terrible. And crucial corners have no sign on them at all. And what's a side route that is a dead end, and what can lead you into a through route? Like it's like the signage was done from the point of view of small day trips completely, and no consideration given to people who are trying to make it the trail, trying to link it. And
so I definitely hear what you're saying, Joe, by the way, as someone who's tried to bike it myself. There's certain places where you just kind of you can get pretty lost.
Without a GPS to get you from one link of the Bay Trail to the start of the next one, I would have been really in bad shape because I was by myself. I'd done the same ride 15 years ago, but with a whole group. So there were a whole group of people, doing stuff, figuring it out together. So that was one thing. And I would be interested. I'm going to ride it again. My son wants to do it with me. And I would be interested in volunteering for the administration people and making some notes as I went around about places where instructions are needed and stuff like that, because I'm sure they don't have money to pay somebody to do this, but I'd be willing to do it for free if I got some support. So that's one thing.
So let me just jump in, Joe, and say that's kind of one of my goals with this program. we've been doing this, our fourth program. We're not planning to stop this thing. We're committed to doing this thing. I could see doing this for years, and I could see us really doing projects like that through this program, because, like the Bay Trail Project folks, they're just working really hard to get those gaps closed. That's their priority. But if we can help them, if we can identify some of these improvement opportunities, and like, here's where it's really good, here's where we think we could improve it, I think that would be something, like, as volunteers, that we can really, really support them with.
We've talked in the past about identifying the bathrooms that are on the trail too.
Yes, that's my passion.
Oh, mine too.
If you go back to program number 2, I found, which is ironic, I guess, I found a really great bathroom at Pier 70 in San Francisco. Joe, you had one other point?
Yes, the other point was now I just lost it. Senior moment.
How about if we come back to you, because we got a couple other people with their hands raised.
But just to be able to respond to him a little bit, I just want to let you know that we're at the Bay Trail, we're very aware of some of these issues. And as Rodney said, we have a staff of 3, basically. Right now we're down to 2. So we try to, the Bay Trail is managed and operated by a whole bunch of huge variety of both public and private organizations. So there is some inconsistency, even with signage on the Bay Trail. We've mostly been trying to focus on getting the signage on the Bay Trail itself done. We just haven't had the resources to even look at how do we even go about signing people to get around the gaps at this point. It can get really complicated and really messy. So although that'd be a good idea, I think that's going to be a bit challenging. But just so you know, we are looking at ways to try to figure out how to make the signage on the trail itself better. And certainly would take any help that we can get if you can put together some documents about and suggestions about that, with granted with the limited promise that we have limited resources, so we're not sure how we'd be able to move ahead with that. But having that information is a beginning.
I remembered what I was going to say.
Okay.
Yeah, if somebody wants to contact me about this, my son and I could do an initial survey when we ride the trail sometime in the next year. But if somebody would contact us about who to send it to, what kind of format would be the best, what kind of information would be useful, because I was interested not just in the endpoints of the broken links, but also signage on the trail itself. On the links that exist is tremendously variable, and some places is very adequate, and other places is quite inadequate. But the other thing I wondered was, I was trying to seek out if anybody had done a map of the trail that showed the services that were available nearby the trail for people on foot or bicycle, and the kind of thing that the American Cycling, the Adventure Cycling Association does for their maps, where they show where are the restaurants, where are the hotels and the hostels and the places you can buy food and campsites and all that stuff integrated. And I couldn't find anything along those lines. I put together.
No, it's like these guys, you have to understand, like these guys, they have limited resources. If something like that's going to happen, we as volunteers are going to need to make it happen. This show is committed to improving the trail. So those are great points, Joe. I really appreciate them. I share your feelings. I just think we can't really lay it on these people who are working really hard, short-staffed, to get more miles of the trail. Why don't we move on? We've had some folks with their hands up for a while, so I'd like to move on to Steve, who's had his hand up, and then after that, I'll call on Bob. So go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, for those who know me, this is Steve Dorst. I didn't know I should put in my full name when I signed in. I'm particularly interested in legal barriers to accessibility to the trail. There's a number of, my particular beef is with East Bay Parks that has a curfew on the portions of the trail that they administer from 10 p.m. till 5 a.m. daily. and I know of at least 2 people who've been ticketed for breaking that curfew. They're commuters on the Bay Trail that go from Richmond to downtown Oakland, and sometimes they work late. And being legally disallowed from Point Isabel to Marina Bay after 10 p.m. causes them to have to either risk a ticket or get detoured on some very, very dangerous city streets. Right. And I started some work on this myself, but since the shutdown, I haven't been able to do any. And frankly, my life is changing, and I'm moving 300 miles away at the end of summer. So it's not an issue I can really follow up on at this point, but I'm hoping that somebody else is as outraged as I am that a very valuable and safety critical portion of the trail from Point Isabel to Marina Bay is technically illegal to use between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. And since somebody else mentioned bathrooms, I might just tell you that one of my occasional hobbyist things to do is to go onto Google Maps in satellite view, trace the trail, and find public bathrooms and create places in Google Maps called public bathroom.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad
Can
to
I
hear
address
that.
Steve's?
Yeah, I've done at least 10 of them so far.
Yeah. I'll take a look for that, Steve. That's the sort of thing we want to put in our show notes.
Yeah. And Rodney, can I address Steve's issue about the closure? Because on serving on BCDC, I know BCDC's permits generally have required the trail to be open 24 hours. Like from the Marina Bay area, that part of the trail's owned by the city of Richmond, and it's open 24 hours. Even though the parks at the marina technically are closed at night, the trail is open.
Well, the East Bay Park has.
No, I know. I'm getting to that, Steve. I'm talking about the Richmond part. So I've heard this issue raised, and I've been meaning to follow up on it, and I will. I don't know if there was that portion you're talking from the bridge by Meeker Slough over to Point Isabel, controlled by the Park District. I've heard, it's closed. I've probably broken that rule many times because I've walked on that trail at nighttime after 10 o'clock. I've been meaning to follow up on that because, the trail's under different ownership, and the parts of the trail that have been required under a BCDC permit have usually required that the trail be open 24 hours. So I don't know that section, if there was a BCDC permit issued to the Park District. So you raise a really important issue about wanting to, a startup, and Najari saying here he got a ticket in New York for exiting a park after park hours. Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. And talk about a social justice issue.
There's also another issue with the East Bay Parks administered portions of the trail, and that's given the exploding popularity of e-bikes. Most people aren't aware of it, but technically they don't allow e-bikes on any of their trails except for a couple that are nowhere near here.
Yeah, I think that's
I have noticed that on some, and I can tell you that speed has been an issue as someone who bikes and walks. Speed has been an issue from some bikers along that portion. I'm not talking electric bikes. So, and you're right. I mean, you could have speed issues with a non-electric bike as much as an electric bike. So it's really about, following the rules. And a lot of people in electric bikes, travel very responsibly. So I think it is unfortunate to block an electric bike.
From their point of view, it's not so much that they're blocking it, but when they first wrote their park regulations, it excluded any motor-powered vehicles, any kind of motors, and they haven't lifted that for other than a couple of trails since the state law changed to include Class 1 and 2 e-bikes as generic bikes.
That is a very controversial subject in the American program in itself, because as John said, there's a lot of problems with speeding bicycles. The Bay Trail state legislation creating the Bay Trail specifies non-motorized use. However, having said that, local government entities do have the authority under state law to allow or disallow motorized vehicles, including e-bikes, and there are many types of e-bikes. Some don't require pedaling at all. They're not active transportation. Some can go 28 miles an hour, so the potential for speeding is much greater with no human effort. So it's a big subject. I think it might mention future.
Yeah, we probably don't want to get into the policy, but I mean, there is to me this bottom line of just being respectful of everyone else on the trail.
Right.
You know, like we could have a whole show about how bicyclists pass pedestrians. I've got a really good bell on my bike, but it's kind of loud, and I kind of feel like if I use that bell at full length, it's at full strength, it's going to probably scare somebody. So what I've really been doing is really slowing down when I'm going by a pedestrian, and they seem to appreciate that. I do want to move on because we've got a number of other people who've had their hands up for a while. I want to call on Bob, and then I'll call on Tay. So Bob Kakendell.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right, I said
yeah, it's a tough last name.
Please tell me how to say that.
What I was wondering about is closing the gap from Point Pinole over to Bayview, the one that's going in behind that Amazon. Is there any plans on that in the future?
Yes, I can answer that. East Bay Regional Parks District did a study some time ago on that. They're committed to closing that gap. They need to ramp up that study again. It's challenging. There's some tidal marshes to get through just north of Atlas, the mile north of Atlas Road. There's a railroad corridor. It's going to be an expensive, big, complicated project, but they're committed to closing that gap. But don't look for it soon.
Yeah, and the advocacy is going to be very important, I would imagine, right, Bruce?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. All right. And do you know if there's any plans for a walkover way over the railroad track in behind by that Montalban Park? Because there's no access to get across any of those tracks in there. And, you know, that's one of the major entrances, either there or Bayview. I know that's probably part of all the holdup on that area.
No, I'm not aware of any plans to get over those tracks. And there are, a few places where there's any place to go on the other side of the tracks, but no plans on where very expensive, very costly bridges, grade crossing, tough to get a new grade crossing. So,
all right. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, Rodney.
And thank you, Bob, because I really want that gap closure too.
Yeah, and just a quick thing on crossings is that I know Caltrans, the local Caltrans District 4 has recently been working through their first regional pedestrian plan, and they adopted a bicycle plan 2 years ago. And, part of the look at that is changing policies on how to facilitate crossing it, to go over their facilities that they manage, the highways and freeways. So it is they are looking at it, but it's probably a long ways off since they have a lot of crossings. So just to let you know, it's not dead yet, but it's probably a long time coming.
Yeah, it looks like one time there was some type of a walkway by that Montalban Park. There's actually been dirt built up there. So it looked like either walkway or roadway was over there at one time.
Yeah. Let's move on. Tay has had his hand up for a while, and then I'll call on Bill. So Tay. Tay, yes. By the way, I want to mention that I know you're with Rich City Rides, and I had the pleasure of running into you a couple weeks ago in Point Pinole. So yeah, tell us your thoughts or question.
Hey, how you doing, man? It was Point Richmond.
Yeah. You were working the pop-up bike shop there, right?
Yeah, yep. It was in Point Richmond. Where we're doing a pop-up down there, doing some repairs, trying to bring the service to everybody. You know how we always trying to meet people where they are, so to speak. But I wanted to mention before I lost my train of thought again. I wanted to mention something about people were saying something about the bathrooms, and I think it was Steve that mentioned about Google Maps and making your trips kind of circle around the certain bathrooms that you know of, and that is an excellent idea because I do the same thing. I just don't I don't actually look at Google. I kind of take certain social trips, and then when I see certain bathrooms, then I kind of remember them. And a couple of those bathrooms I wanted to mention were like just off the top of my head, it was one at Albany Bulb. The new one at Albany Bulb is that's pretty good for an outside bathroom. I'm not saying that it's luxury and it has like a bidet in it or anything like that, but it's pretty good. We at Rich City Rides partnered with East Bay Regional Parks, and we did a whole series of camping trips and stuff. And we did day trips and stuff, and they let us to witness some of the great spaces that had bathrooms and stuff, like at Point Pinole. There's a great bathroom there also, connected to the Bay Trail. And what else I wanted to mention? I just can't wait for these trails to start opening back up to the public, because they are major modes of there are major routes of transportation that people use on a daily and nightly basis to get where they're going. So yeah, I hate to hear about people getting ticketed for just using a form of transit. That sounds really crazy. And Mr. Gioia spoke about the people speeding and him walking and biking. To that experience, I also do a little bit of all of the things. I hike also with a bunch of the youth, and we can have people speeding along. And one of the things that I have noticed, if anybody is listening and able to do something about this, it's about the education, the education and the knowing of the rules of said what activity that you're experiencing at the time. Right. You know, hikers don't know all the rules about hiking, right, and when they're on trails, and bikers don't know all the rules about biking when they're on trails versus when they're on the street, and you know, if they're on the sidewalk, and if it's versus a pedestrian versus bike, and car versus bike, and stuff like that, where we at Rich City Rides were really big on bicycle education, and knowing how to use your left hand, you know, when signaling, knowing that the signal about 150 feet before you're turning, making sure that you lock eyes with the cars and stuff on the road, you know, making sure that you call out well before you run, you speed up on a pedestrian, you know, slowing down, like Mr. Rodney said, slowing down all the way so you don't startle anybody, you know. But I just wanted to speak about those type of things, and I just can't wait for the trails to open back up, and especially hearing about the Point Malate. It's a special place to me, and I go there all the time, whether it's biking or with my family, and I can't wait to see the changes that come from that way, from East Bay Regional Parks and everybody else that's partnering with them.
Yeah,
but that's all.
Tay raises a really good point about just even pedestrian education, because maybe those of us in Richmond can work together and come up with some, you know, put together some pamphlet on rules, because you'll have a group of pedestrians walking, blocking the whole trail, and not getting out of the way when somebody may be biking or even running by. So it works all ways. It's education for all trail users, runners, bikers, walkers.
Yeah, and you know, our Bay Trail Confidential, we're all for like obeying the rules. Like, you know, like I see a lot of dogs off leash in Marina Bay, and you know, this makes me feel bad for the bird life there. One thing I want to mention to you, Tay, is there is a fabulous bathroom at Brooklyn Basin in Oakland. If you guys get down that way, it's one of the we're going to have a best of the Bay Trail bathroom. I'm serious, man. There's some really nice bathrooms out there. I want to call on Bill. Thank you, Bill, for being so patient. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I live in the annex and regularly ride out to the Craneway, and have been doing so for many years. I've always seen riders zip by. But now with COVID and more people using the trail, we have many more people exercising by riding their bikes like crazy. Most of you may know that, or you may know that the speed limit is 15. I'm sure that most of you people are very aware and sensitive to walkers and so on, but these people aren't necessarily. There are, of course, kids and women with men with strollers, et cetera, older people with walkers. Very dangerous situation. I think it's pretty naive to think that they're going to get educated. I mean, we all agree that would be a great thing. I just don't think that's going to happen. In the Richmond Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, I was one of the original people, along with Gioia and some others. And we talked at one point about putting up speed limit signs. And we also had a talk from a police officer in Richmond. They had a group at that time called the Rangers, some young people who, if they spotted something, they wouldn't do anything about it, but they'd maybe tell a real policeman. I think that every now and then, I think the sign should say 15 plus a fine if you exceed it. Now, a lot of people may not observe that, but if you have the occasional cop come by and bust a few people, the word will get around. I think it's kind of naive that people will just automatically.
For our program,
ring my bell, I sing out and all that, like I'm sure a lot of you do. But
we're just trying to encourage the good behavior. And as far as like a policy change, as with policing and stuff, that's not kind of beyond the scope of what we do here. But our community, I think it's a core value I have, and I hope people who come on this program share it, that we just want the maximum number of people to be able to coexist in a very happy way, right? We should all be making the most of this public resource. And so that means pedestrians and bicyclists and other users. That means people from different backgrounds and ethnicities. Like, this is a resource that belongs. This is public space, and you should respect public space, which means respecting other people in their enjoyment too.
That's fine. Just how do you deal with the people who don't?
Well, I'm not a cop, so go ahead, Najari.
I would like to speak.
Oh yeah, I actually wanted to. Yeah, some of the things that were just said. We could probably do a whole show on like who's more likely to be criminalized historically in any forms of outdoor space. I'm an advocate for culture change, and one of the ways that we change culture is by engaging the community. Through Rich City Rides has a bicycle club. We've expanded our bicycle club to include not just high school students, but middle school students. We'd like to be able to get these clubs into more schools. But through that consistent engagement, like we've done hundreds of rides. We were doing them every Sunday. Many of these kids have gotten bikes through Rich City Rides, and their families have gotten bikes through Rich City Rides. It encourages that socialization that gets people to appreciate each other and appreciate the place. I also, when I heard about bathrooms, there's Unity Park is a great example of a community effort to expand, creative outdoor spaces. We put a playground there. The master plan includes a skate park. There's the Dirt World Bike Park. It's a 2-acre bicycle skills park that's on the Richmond Greenway. All these things leading all along the trail. But the bathrooms there don't look like the bathrooms in other East Bay regional parks. There's we actually need, as an equity issue, we need the same level of secure and well-kept bathrooms at along the Greenway as that we have in along the marina. So I'm actually less in favor of like, you know, over policing the public. I'm more in favor of creating opportunities for people to engage each other in healthy, happy, joyful social activity that celebrates our streets, pathways, and trails in a way that provides access to all. So we truly feel as a whole community that all these parks and all these places are all of ours. So I just wanted to point that out.
No, that's well said, Najari. And the reality of it is that you know there aren't the resources really to have people to be out there, even if that was something that people wanted. But probably the most effective thing that was done a few years ago, because this has been an issue for a few years, especially in that stretch of Bay Trail near Marina Bay. It's sort of, in a way, if you look at it, it's a good thing. It means the Bay Trail is really popular. That's the problem. It's really popular, and there's not enough space for everybody sometimes. And, you know, like Rodney said, we really want good behavior. But I think the most effective thing that happened as a result of that, when the issue became sort of a big deal a few years ago, is Bike East Bay and the city of Richmond kind of took it upon themselves to kind of do some pop-up engagements during the busy weekends with people who are on the trail to kind of talk about, you know, trail etiquette and to kind of like make them aware that there's other people on the trail and to just be kind of conscious of that and be thoughtful. You know, and I think they had a very positive reception from that. Most people that they engaged said that they just didn't know that they needed to do certain things to be able to make sure they needed to accommodate other people. You know, with that said, of course, there's always going to be some bad players in the world. That's just true in the planet. I'm not sure if there's anything we can do that'll stop them. But, you know, I think as long as there's a role here for community groups and just for us as citizens to kind of go out and continue to kind of promote being kind and considerate of others while we're using trails and to show that etiquette is important. And it's not just it's a trail for everyone, not just for individuals.
That is like, that last sentence is kind of like, I think it sums up what we've been saying tonight. You know, it is a trail for everyone. And so it's the onus is on us to really respect each other in a way that makes that possible. Other thoughts out there? I see Paco. Paco is like on all of my programs. And Paco, what do you want to unmute and tell us? Did you have a good time tonight?
Yes, Rodney. Great photos. You know, very, very incredible.
Thank you, Paco. Paco, by the way, I gave an award out to my most loyal audience member at the end of the year, and we're going to call it the Paco Award from now on. So it's just so great to see you out there. This has been a really, really great night, really great discussion. I can't thank my guests enough. So thank you again, Najari, John, Bruce. I want to thank Ethel and Lee, who are more. Ethel's my co-host and Lee is a frequent guest. And I hope you guys had a good time, and we'll be back again next month when we talk about the Carquinez Strait, which is pretty close to Richmond. And we'll be talking about like ways to maybe do a one-way trip from Martinez back to Richmond that I've enjoyed doing. We're kind of planning out other things. We are going to want to cover our other parts of the bay, and we'll be doing something that focuses more on the South Bay or the peninsula probably in April. So stay tuned for that. Still eager to hear any thoughts you guys have out there. Anyone, what are your thoughts on the program? What do you think we should be doing more of? Would love to hear that. Also, there will be a survey sent out tomorrow morning that I'd love to have you respond to. And please be frank with your feedback. We're new at this, and we're kind of learning as we go. And we're really eager to hear what you think will make this show maximally fun and a community that really brings people together to celebrate the Bay Trail. It has been a long night, so I'm hearing silence out there.
I love this program, and I'm so glad that you guys are putting this on, and I'm really glad to be a part of it. And I also want to make sure that people think about the kids and the youth Bicycle education used to be in elementary school. It was our first vehicles, and somebody way back then knew that. For some reason, it got taken out, but we see the results of that. Nobody knows how to ride and be a pedestrian along each other. You know, maybe if we start with the kids, you know, we'll get somewhere because they become the adults that, you know the rules.
I totally agree with that. I mean, so much joy in my life has come through biking. I met my wife biking in Napa, and we've been married for 22 years now. And, you know, this is just the joy of my life. And Tay, it's just so great that you and Najari and Rich City Rides are expanding the number of people who can enjoy that. I am planning to be more involved with Rich City Rides in the future. And you guys will have my total support because I think what you do is really important. Any last words from my co-host or the other guests?
Thank you, Rodney.
I just think it was a great evening. I want to just say again, thank you to everybody who shared your knowledge and your experiences. That's what really makes this worthwhile for all of us.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you again, Rodney, for putting this together. It's just each episode just gets more and more interesting and exciting, and just there's clearly a lot more interest out there. One thing I think that I want to kind of say about this particular program that always hits me about being a resident of Richmond, and it's one of the things that makes me really proud to be a resident of Richmond, is how much passion and community there is really within the city. There's so many people who are just out trying to do good things for each other.
And we had 280 of them come on the show. I mean, not everyone was from Richmond, but we had very strong turnout. It has been a long night. I think we should probably wrap this up. So I wish you all safety and happiness and good times on the Bay Trail.
Happy trails.
Happy trails.
Exactly.
All right.
Good evening.
Happy trails, Rodney.
Happy trails, Paco.
Very,
Jari,
very
John,
fantastic.
Bruce, Lee, Ethel, everyone, Tay.
All the best.
All the best. Okay, you guys stay safe.
And have a great evening.
Wonderful one.